I am Kairi Alande. Welcome again to the program State of the Nation. We invite you to be a part of the show using the hashtag State of the Nation and tweet also at me at KAY Alande on Twitter. We are glad to have you join the conversation. So, what's on the plate tonight? New boss at the NNPC. What's the task ahead for him? On Thursday, the president appointed a new general managing director for the NNPC. He is Mr. Mele Kolo Kiari. He also appointed 7 other chief operating officers who are expected to work with the current officers holding the office up until July the 7th, 2019, for a smooth transition to take place. Now, Mr. Kiari's appointment essentially draws the curtain on the assignment of Mr. Mekantibaru, who has already congratulated the newly appointed officers. Mr. Kiari would be the 19th GMD of the NNPC. But what does the new change of guard portend for the NNPC on one hand and the nation on the other hand? We have a brilliant gentleman in the studio to discuss that with me tonight. He is Mr. Balazaka, a petroleum expert and also a petroleum engineer and also a chartered accountant. Mr. Balazaka, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
You're a friend of the family. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so like I said in my opening, what does this portend for the NNPC, this change of guard?
Well, it's fantastic. It's a great idea. And you know, generally, when you talk about the oil and gas industry, you're talking about a global industry and you're talking about a global commodity. And that simply means whenever you're talking about anything that has to do with NNPC, you're talking about that institution that is the global face of Nigeria as far as oil and gas industry is concerned. And the change of guards, it's good. And from what some of us had, they've been given close to probably a month, you know, for effective, you know, transition and handover. Unlike what we see on the real political scene, where a departing governor will not be there, you know, to hand over to. In this case, you can see everything is smooth. And many of us want to believe that in this case, you know, probably there is every likelihood to believe that round pegs were picked or recommended, you know, or appointed for the round holes. All we will want to see now is perception is one thing, then practicals and reality will be one thing. I think everybody, all lovers of success in Nigeria and the oil and gas industry in general, will want to see this team succeed. But like we said, we are also in a new political dispensation. So we also have what we want to say, our expectations. So in the course of these discussions, we will talk about our expectations.
All right, let's backtrack a bit. Someone has been there, Mr. Mekantibaru, for in the last 4 years, basically.
Yes.
Let's look at what he's been able to bring to the table and what positioning that has afforded us at OPEC, for instance, and in the global oil industry. The reason I'm saying we should do that is, let's take a look at what's happening in the last 4 years and see where the new man has to start from.
Yeah. When you talk about it from that perspective, you know, you can also ignore the role of the Minister for State for Petroleum. I want to believe that the duo or the door of Mekantibaru, you know, the outgoing GMD, and the Minister for Petroleum, State Minister for Petroleum, really did well for Nigeria. They did their best. Because when you talk about business climate hostilities in the Niger Delta, to be honest, that has really, really gone down. We know we have other security issues, but those are generally national. And we also noticed that somehow, somewhere, attempts have been made, you know, to make sure cash call issues are reduced to the barest minimum. You know, so when you talk about joint venture relationships and cash call issues, I think to a reasonable extent, the federal government, in this case through probably NNPC, the Mekantibarus, the Kachikwus were able to make sure Nigeria has been responding to her own side of the cash call. Then fundamentally, when you say achievements now, practically, as at 1st of December or 1st of January 2019, we were made to understand that the proved gas reserve of Nigeria has been increased from 187 trillion cubic feet to 200 cubic feet. We are talking about gas reserves now, though some people will receive it differently, because for some people they will feel, we've been talking about gas flaring, gas pollution, why are we having additional gas? But to real experts, to technocrats, to those who wish Nigeria to grow in terms of what we call resource like that, it's a blessing, because the proved reserve, and when you say something is proved, that means if you deploy the existing technology, you can be able to scoop the entire gas. And with that, that simply means we should be able now to be able to drive our gas turbines to generate enough electricity. Because remember, when we unbundle NEPA, we predicated that on the availability of gas. So there is now gas increase. Another thing again, even when you talk about boosting agriculture, let us remember also that one of the major ingredients is natural gas. From gas, you will get ammonia. From ammonia, you will get urea. And urea is a major component of what? Of fertilizer. We should be able to think about boosting fertilizer production and doing something about agriculture. There was a time also we were talking about the West African gas project. This is a time to further do what? Boost it. There was a time Nigeria conceived what we call the Trans-Saharan Gas Pipeline Project, meaning that this Nigeria that we think is nothing, was going to produce enough gas, pipe it through North Africa, through the Mediterranean Sea, and supply Europe. With all this now, it simply means, like you were talking about, we're looking about what they've done. Somehow, somewhere, with this abundance, we should be able to revisit that project again.
Let's look at the new man at the helms of affairs now, Mr. Kyari. He comes with an impressive track record.
Correct.
We understand that he spent the last 27 years at the entire, within the entire value chain of the oil industry. That's something quite impressive. And he's also represented Nigeria at OPEC.
Correct.
For several years.
Correct.
What impact do you think that experience, but experience is one thing.
Yes.
An operation, like you said at the beginning, is another thing. How do you think these two sets of experiences able to impact Nigeria positively, especially at OPEC and the global oil market?
Well, positively. And let me say something that I've always said, and I want to say this practically. Fortunately, I have not worked for Nigerian government or any ministry for one day in my life. I've always been a private person. So nobody will say you're talking for NNPC or a particular ministry. To be honest, when you talk about NNPC, people have a very wrong conception. I mean, misconception again about NNPC.
When it comes to corruption, perception that has to do with corruption.
Let me tell you, the individuals in NNPC are great people. Believe me, from the GMD to the toilet cleaner. For you to qualify and clean toilet in NNPC, believe me, you must have some level of decency and experience to be able to do that. So when you say somebody has been in the mainstream of activities in NNPC, these guys are sharp. And besides that, most of the guys you see working in NNPC, especially in Nigeria, they were actually brought from different parts of the world and have had experience, and different experience with major operating companies, international. Even the Minister of State that just left, he came from one of the global oil companies. So in terms of individual performance, they are great.
I want
when political interference will come in and negatively punctuate their activities is when we don't know. And we pray there will be no political interference.
All right, I would have loved to ask you a question, but we've got to go on a break right now. Thank you very much, Mr. Balazaka, petroleum expert. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on the program tonight.
Thank you.